For some of us, our job, even for those people who the job is just about earning a salary, right? That salary fulfills something, allows you to fill your belly with food, support your family. So, our job just becomes who we are.
The job of a UX professional often sounds like a dream. However, a number of UX professionals today are facing a growing sense of job dissatisfaction. Today, we're diving into this topic with Henry Seals, strategic HR expert, human rights commissioner, and author. Henry Seals, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with the first question. Like many people, I've experienced job dissatisfaction a number of times throughout my career, and I've come to realize that at its core, dissatisfaction often stems from defining ourselves by our jobs. Why do you think we tie our identity so strongly to our job?
Okay, well, to be really simple, humans, we're doers. And when we're doing something, we get sort of consumed by it. It becomes what we do. And then you combine that with repetition. It becomes every day. And then you make it even more complicated by perhaps tying in a goal, a personal goal. You have expectations set up with it. So a lot of your identity, a lot of what you want out of life is connected to this job. And so if that job is endangered, either through criticism or either through a bad day or either through some sort of risk or change, it reflects on ourselves because we fulfill ourselves to a large degree through what we do in our job. For some of us, our job, even for those people who the job is just about earning a salary, right? That salary fulfills something, allows you to fill your belly with food, support your family. So, our job just becomes who we are, So it's a very simple way that we respond to what we're doing action-wise to linking it to ourselves. So just imagine how much more powerful of a factor the job plays because you do it every day, every single day for many years.
Dissatisfaction can be a very powerful emotion. Some people can suppress it, others express it openly, as we sometimes see in countless videos on social media. If you are an employee who feels dissatisfied with your job, what can you do to improve it?
Okay, so I'll give an example. So I was having a talk with a staff member of mine, HR, and they were sharing with me some of the concerns they had about some managers in the company. And, they kept speaking about problems and dissatisfaction that employees may be making. And so I asked them, I said, so what can you do about it? And they looked at me and they thought I was being, trying to test them. And I really wasn't. I was like, think about what you can do, because I could see that they were starting to get into this snowball effect of all the bad things that they cannot control. I said, what can you control about it? So I asked the question. And, I don't think it made their day better or suddenly it solved all the problems. But you realize when you have a little bit of control or influence, it's empowering. It makes you feel less dissatisfied because you can do something about it. So one thing when you're dissatisfied with your job is saying, okay, well, maybe I'm dissatisfied because I can't hit a big goal. There's something really important I want. It's either respect or someone to listen to me. But there's smaller goals. There's things like, maybe I can learn something. Maybe I can spend this sort of figure out something about how my company works. I can learn how not to behave, for instance. There's things you can learn. So you really have to find something you can control. Try to achieve some type of goal, some type of short-term goal through things you can control, not the things that you cannot.
People often blame external factors for their job dissatisfaction.
Oh, yes.
And it can be easier to point a finger at others. And it is often said, actually what you just said, that if you want to solve a problem, you should look at yourself first.
Yeah.
But when it comes to job dissatisfaction, there are so many moving parts that play a role.
Yes.
What's your view on this?
Yeah. So there's two or three different sides here. I'll talk about two because they're major. One is that work is a social construct. It's a social environment. Even if you're not in the same office working with people, you're working. It's very social. So there's this aspect of there's this influential piece of the work we do. We influence the people we work with. We influence our boss. We influence our subordinates. We influence other teams. And so your influence can have a really big effect on how people treat you, your mindset, your energy, a whole bunch of things. And you combine that with work dissatisfaction, and it can be incredibly, what do you say? It can be incredibly sort of overwhelming. Like you can't really figure out what's going on. Why am I so put upon? Why are things so hard? So I think, I don't want to sound like a victim blamer, like it's all on you, because sometimes it's not. But the irony of it all, again, is when you here's some advice. Actually, let me start with some advice rather than sort of answering the question. When you take a job, a lot of times you're very excited at the beginning of the job. You hear about the money, you hear about the opportunity, you hear about all those exciting things, and you're really excited. Now, what we forget, which is true, it's a job. Okay, it's going to have terrible aspects, things that you don't see yet because you're not there, that are going to make you have long days and long nights. So you've already set yourself up to be a little dissatisfied, right? So that's where experience comes in. That's where like-minded people can say, hey, you're going to go into this job, you're going to run into these problems. And so you want to give someone perspective on how to handle those things, right? So again, I get back to having a good circle of people who can tell you how it's done. The next thing is you need to be humble enough to listen. You can't think, well, my job is different. Come on, it's not. It's like everyone else's job, first of all. But I'm going to give you another example about my view on this. Is it's really perspective and experience. So I want to use the restructuring aspect because it's an HR thing. It happens all the time when you restructure. Mm-hmm. And I can see the sadness on people's faces when they're even discussing the topic. I'm talking about managers, not the staff who are being dismissed or anything like that. But let's just say with the staff, they're really, really sad about this. Now, I have to a degree, be energetic, right? Be positive because it's my job. Mm-hmm. But also I feel that way. A part of me really feels that way because through a restructuring effort, what usually winds up happening is everyone who leaves winds up finding a job in the future, and probably a better job. Eventually they do. Most people, not everyone. Secondly, it's an opportunity for you to really, it's a good challenge. What I mean by that is a lot of times when you do a restructuring, you think about, I'm talking about executives and the company itself. You think about, I've got to make these people leave. We've got to reduce cost and stuff. But one of the things that's really important is the people who remain remember how you treated the people who left, right? The people who remain will see how you treated them. Did you force them out? Were you disrespectful? Did you, these type of things, right? So for me, I'm excited sometimes. I don't mean to say happy, but excited when a restructuring happens because it comes a time for you to really reaffirm your values. It's a chance for a company to really transform itself as a place of integrity, a place of keeping promises, etc. So what I'm getting at is a lot of what you consider to be dissatisfaction is really based on your experience. Because I know full well that if a company treats its exit of employees with the same respect and integrity that you'd want to treat your clients or customers, a year from now, 2 years from now, your employees are going to be working harder for you. They're going to be more thankful. They're going to trust you. I have that experience. I have that perspective. So when I'm going through a situation like this, I don't feel as dissatisfied as maybe a younger person who's never experienced that situation. So a lot of times, dissatisfaction comes from a lack of just perspective on what this challenging situation can offer you.
So I would like to give you two opposite perspectives. Some say that a job is just what it is and you find meaning outside of your work, while others see their job as an opportunity to express wisdom, compassion, and presence. Whatever the job is that you do. What's your view on this?
Okay. That's an interesting question. Well, my view, I mean, personally, I think of my job as, an opportunity to express myself or an opportunity to do something that's important and valuable to me because I spend so much time doing it. So I think that if you have a job that you're invested in, there should be meaning there if you spend a lot of time doing it. We're all human, we're all mortal. We all, from time to time, think about our lives and what it means. We've all heard about people who wish they spent less time at the office. So I think having meaning and purpose is a way to have sort of long-term feeling of accomplishment. So that's my personal view on it for myself. But each person starts from somewhere. Sometimes you have people who've gotten into jobs just for the money. That's what it's about. It's about money. And I make a good paying job and it allows me to pay for my vacation, pays for my family. And it may not necessarily be the job they really necessarily feel passionate or good about. Should they change their job? Well, not necessarily. If they feel that's what they need to do, then that's what they need to do. And life and experience will teach them either the decision they made was right or they need to change. So for me, it's along the lines of being, I think, an HR team or a manager or a leader. This needs to be there when the employees start to have those questions. Like if someone wants to express wisdom, compassion, and presence and they can't, someone needs to be there to guide them through that rough patch. And if someone's been trying to find meaning outside of work, but all of a sudden the work hours start increasing, their time outside of work starts to go away, and they start to feel some sort of pain inside they haven't felt in a while, you want to be there for them so they can overcome whatever that challenge happens to be. I don't think either one is right, so to speak. Each one has its problems given the situation. But long term, the more opportunity you have in your job to be yourself, I think the more in general in life to be yourself and express your feelings and what you think, I think the more satisfied you'll be overall.
That's maybe a very nice bridge to the next question. We both work in Japan, and Japan has a rather unique working environment. As an outsider, you might wonder about it, but there's perhaps something that we can learn from the Japanese working environment.
I think the structure, like how structured it is something that is really nice. It's funny I say that because I'm not a structured person like that naturally, but I've learned to be living here so long. So one thing I find about Japan is that there's a lot of predictability in what happens, so I can shut my brain off. Like when I'm in the train in Japan, I'm American by birth, so I do think of this because it's just my culture, but I don't worry about someone stabbing me or crime or being assaulted or any sort of those kind of distractions. So I can shut my brain down and just really listen to my podcast or listen to a book. If I'm walking down the street at night, I can, there's structures. I go into the office, I know people are going to say good morning. Like one of the things I think is really interesting about Japan is if you go into the office, and I've had employees complain about this. It's very typical. If you go into the office and you say good morning to somebody, they have to respond to you. If they do not respond to you, it means they do not like you. Or they didn't hear you. That's possible. But if they heard you and they didn't respond to you, it means they didn't like you. It means they're being disrespectful. 100%. I wish I'd say 99, but it's true. It's like that type of sort of conditioning gives you a lot of context clues and there's a lot less thinking about things you don't have to do. You can focus on what's important. So I find that very, very thing. A lot of the structure of Japan allows you to be less, it allows for less distraction, I think.
So my last question to you. So the pandemic was a huge reset for many. And I think it has brought a noticeable shift from work-centric identities to life-centric priorities. Will that shift hold up in the future?
An opportunity to get out of the office, to focus on your family, to be near them is something people are going to respond to. I think there'll be a reset at some point where, people are sick of, well, I won't say sick of their families and sick of work-life balance, but they're sort of sick of they want something more. Humans are that way. Humans always want more, right? This is a part of us. We always want more. And you're going to see people enterprising and trying to do things on their own, trying out new ideas, trying for new markets, maybe wanting to work abroad. You're going to see a shift because that's what humans do. And we may see people working in an office. They're working together face to face, that type of thing. But I think it shifts. People are going to want more. Like they wanted to work at home. They wanted to get away from the office. COVID allowed that to happen. Does that mean they never want to work with other people? I don't think that's the case. I think that the right reason, the right impetus needs to come. But I don't know what that impetus will be. And I'm just curious myself personally, what's going to drive that change. But as far as the idea of people can be fulfilled, they can be professional, they can be productive working away from the office, we've already proven that that's possible. So I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Henry Seals, thank you so much for today's episode. But before we end this, are there any books you're currently reading and that you recommend?
There's many. First, there's mine. I have one called Reading the Air. I recommend that to everyone. If you want to succeed in business in Japan, meaning, managing people or leading people, read that. You just find my name on there. But outside of the self-promotion, right, there's several books I've read that are really interesting. Now, so working in Japan, there's a book called The Culture Map by Aaron Mayer, about working with people in different cultures. I think that book is useful in this context because sometimes when you're dealing with dissatisfaction or stakeholders or people you just don't like, to be honest, it's not about you, it's not about them. It's really about you guys to see the world different ways. You just have different perspectives, and empathy can always help a little bit. So this book sort of helps you get a perspective on how different people communicate and how they want to deal with each other. Another one called 9 Lies we tell ourselves about HR. Like, for instance, performance reviews really improve performance, right? They don't really. That type of thing. It just gives you a perspective that a lot of what we do in the workspace is created. We made it up. There's a book or there's a theory. One company was successful with it. We mimicked it. So a lot of times the world we live in is what we make. That book just reminded me that a lot of what we do is made up. So those are two that I recommend: The Culture Map and the 9 Lies we tell ourselves about HR.
Henry, good tips. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Robert. It's great speaking to you. It's great to catch up.